Order. I give the call to the member for Hume.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. Last week, in an interview on Sky News, the Minister for Finance refused to rule out changes to franking credits, changes to negative gearing and refused to rule out scrapping stage 3 tax cuts. Will the Treasurer rule out changes to franking credits, negative gearing and stage 3 tax cuts?
I give the call to the Treasurer.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. Every time the member for Hume opens his mouth, he reminds us why, in the 15 seasons of Sean McAuliffe's Mad as Hell, there has never been a funny character than when the member for Hume played himself on Wednesday night. And you can see why Sean McAuliffe tapped the mat after 15 seasons. You cannot top the comedic performance of the member for Hume being interviewed by Laura Jays. The very idea, as the acting Prime Minister said before, that these characters opposite would have the nerve to ask us about tax and about the cost of living after the wasted decade that they have just presided over. We've made our position on tax very clear, and what we have said is our priority when it comes to tax reform is multinational taxes. And we took to the election and we will implement in the October budget a plan to ensure that multinationals pay a fairer share of the tax where they make their profits so that we can fund the services that we desperately need to fund. And so that's our position, Mr Speaker, as you know. And again, as the acting Prime Minister rightly pointed out, you'd think that the dregs of the former government would know better than to come up to this dispatch box, having spent a decade taxing more, borrowing more, spending more, but delivering much, much less than its Labor predecessors, to actually have the nerve to come up here and ask us about tax and the cost of living. Now, as the acting Prime Minister mentioned a moment ago, those opposite have absolutely no idea, they have absolutely no credibility, and as the Shadow Minister for Finance said, they have absolutely no alternatives to the proposals that we will fund in the budget in October.
Is the Treasurer concluded his answer?
No.
I just ask him to resume his seat, and I ask the Leader of the Opposition to state the point of order.
Well, on relevance is the point of order, Mr Speaker. The question was, will the Treasurer rule out changes to franking credits, superannuation, negative gearing and stage 3 tax cuts? And he's gone no way to answering that question.
Resume your seat. The Treasurer is in order, and I have order the member for Moncrieff. The Treasurer is in order. He is referring to tax policy, and I asked him to return to the balance of the question.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. And I've made the government's priorities clear when it comes to tax reform, and that is multinational taxes. And as people would have read in the Fin today, there is a measure before the House, which was a measure on franking credits proposed by the former Treasurer, a fellow called Scott Morrison, in 2016. So there's a proposal before the Parliament to finish that job that he announced in the MyEFO of 2016. Now, Mr Speaker, as the Shadow Minister for Finance has said, those opposite have absolutely no alternatives to what we're proposing in the budget. The member for Hume is already a laughingstock in this place. The Shadow Minister for Finance is determined to outdo him. The Leader of the Nationals is no better, talking about the little present that they left the Australian people when the government changed hands. The present that those opposite left the Australian people when government changed hands was skyrocketing inflation, falling real wages, $1 trillion in debt, which is becoming more and more costly for the Australian people to service.